I think I didn't do anything wrong. Just something everyone would have done in my place. But the look on Noah's face when he handed me that envelope outside the church, his voice so calm, so cold, made me realize I'd underestimated what he was capable of. All I did was make one mistake at my own bachelorette party. I didn't think it'd cost me my whole life. I'm not the kind of woman who does reckless things. At least, that's what I used to tell myself. I plan everything, color-code my calendar, double-check every detail before a meeting. But that night, my bachelorette night, I let go. Everyone said it was my last chance to be wild, and I believed them. I thought one stupid mistake could stay buried under laughter and champagne. I thought no one would ever know. The morning after, I woke up with a hangover, a ring on the nightstand, and a name I shouldn't have said still echoing in my head. Eli, my ex. It felt like something that happened to another person, someone who didn't have a wedding in 2 weeks, someone who hadn't already promised forever to a man like Noah. When Noah smiled at me later that day and said he couldn't wait to marry me, I told myself it didn't count. It was just a bad dream, a blur, something I could forget. But secrets don't stay buried forever. They wait, they breathe, and when they finally surface, they take everything with them. Now, I understand that the calmest revenge is also the one that never looks like revenge at all. I'm not proud of what happened that night, but I also don't think it was as terrible as people make it sound. Everyone does stupid things at their bachelorette party. That's kind of the point, isn't it? To have one last wild night before you tie yourself to responsibility forever. At least that's what Clara said when she handed me the 3rd shot of tequila. "It's your send-off," she told me, laughing. "You've earned this." The bar was one of those rooftop places in downtown Nashville, loud, bright, full of strangers, pretending to be best friends for the night. I was already dizzy from the drinks and the flashing lights. Clara had booked a private section for us, a little corner lined with fairy lights and rose gold balloons that spelled out "Bride-to-be." The DJ kept shouting my name over the speakers, and every time he did, the girls screamed like I'd won something. I smiled, pretending I was having the best night of my life. Noah had texted earlier, telling me to have fun and to be safe. That was his thing, always calm, always trusting. Even when I stayed late at work or forgot to call him back, he never got suspicious. I used to think that made him boring. That night, I thought it made him naive. I remember the exact moment I saw Eli. He was standing near the bar, wearing a black t-shirt that looked just tight enough to show he hadn't changed much. Same haircut, same smirk. The kind of smirk that used to make me forgive him for everything. I hadn't seen him in years, and suddenly there he was, like the universe had decided to test me. My heart did that weird flip it used to do when we were together, back when things were messy but exciting. Clara noticed first. "Oh my God," she whispered, nudging me. "Isn't that your ex?" I laughed it off, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, small city, I guess." She grinned. "You should say hi. Closure, right?" I should have said no. I know that now. But the truth is, part of me wanted him to see me. Really see me. Not as the clingy girlfriend he'd dumped years ago, but as someone who'd moved on, who was loved, who was about to get married. Maybe I wanted to prove that I'd won something after all. So I went over. I told myself it would be quick, polite, harmless. Eli smiled when he saw me. That same old look like I was a secret only he understood. He said he'd heard I was getting married, that I looked amazing, that Noah must be one lucky guy. I laughed, pretending his words didn't still have weight. He asked if I wanted a drink. I said one couldn't hurt. One turned into two. Two turned into a conversation about the old days, about how we used to sneak into that awful diner after midnight, how we thought we'd figure life out together. He asked if I ever missed it. I said maybe sometimes. He said, "Me too." The music got louder, or maybe we just stopped hearing it. He touched my arm when he laughed, and it felt too familiar. My friends were still at the table taking pictures, screaming over each other, and no one was paying attention to me. That made it easier to forget where I was, easier to let the moment stretch a little longer. He said, "Let's get some air," and I followed him out to the balcony. The city lights blurred below us. He leaned in close to say something, and I don't even remember what it was. I just remember how warm his breath felt against my ear, how the world tilted for a second, how my mind went quiet. Then I kissed him. Or maybe he kissed me first. I'm not sure anymore. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that I didn't stop it. It wasn't supposed to go any further. I told myself that over and over as we stumbled out of the bar, as he called a ride, as we ended up at the hotel across the street. Every step felt like a decision I wasn't really making. Everything was blurry, dreamlike, distant. I told myself it was fine, that it wasn't real. When I woke up, sunlight was pouring through the curtains. My head throbbed. For a second, I didn't know where I was. Then I saw the empty champagne bottle, the clothes on the floor, and Eli asleep beside me. My ring was on the nightstand. My stomach twisted. He opened his eyes, smiled like it was the most natural thing in the world, and said something about how good it was to see me again. I told him not to talk. I couldn't even look at him. I got dressed as fast as I could, my hands shaking so hard I could barely zip my dress. He asked if I was okay. I said it was a mistake. He said, "Come on, it's not a big deal." Not a big deal. That's what he said. I wanted to scream at him, but I didn't. I just left. Outside, the air felt too bright, too real. I took a cab back to the Airbnb where the girls were staying. No one was awake yet. I showered until the water ran cold, scrubbing at my skin like I could wash off the guilt. Then I stared at myself in the mirror, trying to recognize the woman staring back. When Clara finally woke up, she asked where I'd gone. I told her I'd just needed a walk. She laughed and said, "You really disappeared on us last night. Hope you didn't do anything too crazy." I forced a smile and said, "Of course not." We went for brunch and everyone was still buzzing from the night before. They teased me about how wild I'd been on the dance floor. I played along. When someone asked if I'd seen Eli, I said yeah, but only for a second. "He just congratulated me," I said. They laughed and changed the subject. I thought that was the end of it. When we flew back home that afternoon, Noah picked me up from the airport. He looked so happy to see me. He grabbed my bags and kissed my forehead. He said, "I missed you." I said, "I missed you too." And my voice didn't even shake. That night, he cooked dinner. He kept talking about how soon we'd be married, how he couldn't wait to start our life together. I smiled, nodded, said all the right things. Inside, though, something had cracked open. Every time he looked at me, I wondered if he could see it, the truth, sitting there behind my eyes. When he fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My phone was on the nightstand. There was a text from Eli. "You okay?" I didn't answer. I deleted it. Then I deleted his number. But deleting something doesn't make it disappear. It just hides it until it decides to come back. The next morning, Noah made me coffee. He kissed the top of my head and said he was the luckiest man alive. I said, "You are," and forced a laugh. When he left for work, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the ring on my finger. I told myself it was just one mistake, one night, one tiny crack in an otherwise perfect story. I told myself that every bride has secrets. By noon, I almost believed it. Then my phone buzzed again. A message from Clara. "Guess who showed up in the group photo last night?" I opened it. There, in the background of our laughing faces, barely visible. But there was Eli. My heart stopped. I told myself no one would notice. I told myself I could handle it. But even then, deep down, I knew the truth. The night I pretended was a joke was about to start writing its own ending. When I got home that evening, everything felt too quiet. The house still smelled like Noah's aftershave and coffee, the kind of scent that made me think of Sunday mornings and safety. I should have felt comforted, but instead it made my stomach twist. He'd left me a little note on the counter, his neat handwriting saying, "Hope you had fun, love. I picked up your favorite muffins for breakfast tomorrow." I stood there reading it 3 times, trying to feel something other than guilt. But guilt isn't sharp at first. It's slow, sticky, heavy. It sits inside you like a secret you can't digest. I threw the note away before he could see me looking at it too long. When Noah came home from work, he was still glowing with that quiet excitement he got whenever he looked at me lately. He said the wedding planner had confirmed the final menu, that his mom couldn't stop talking about how perfect everything was going to be. I smiled, nodded, said how amazing that sounded. I don't think he noticed how fake it sounded. Noah wasn't the type to question much. He believed people when they told him they were fine. I used to love that about him. That night, it made me feel trapped. I thought about telling him the truth, just blurting it out before it could eat me alive. But then I imagined his face, the confusion, the hurt, the way his voice would probably crack. And I couldn't. Instead, I told myself it didn't matter. It was just one night. One bad decision in a blur of music and liquor and flashing lights. The world was full of worse secrets than mine. The next morning, I woke up before him and made pancakes. I wanted to feel normal, like everything was okay. When he came into the kitchen and wrapped his arms around me, I almost flinched. His touch felt too gentle, too undeserved. "You're quiet," he said softly. "Just tired," I replied, forcing a smile. "You know how girls' trips are." He laughed, kissed the side of my neck and said, "I'm just glad you're home." That should have made me feel loved. Instead, it made me want to cry. All day, my phone buzzed with messages from my friends. Someone posted another round of photos from the weekend, and every time I saw one, I scanned the background for Eli's face. Nothing obvious this time, thank God. Still, I kept untagging myself, just in case. At lunch, Clara called. She sounded half amused, half nervous. "So, funny thing," she said, "Noah's sister followed me on Instagram this morning. She's liking all the party photos." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "She what?" "Relax," Clara said. "You can barely see anything. And you look amazing in them, by the way. Total bride energy." I laughed a little too loud. "Yeah, thanks." After we hung up, I deleted half the pictures from my phone. Every trace of that night felt radioactive. I kept telling myself this was over, that I could bury it if I just stayed careful. But the more I tried to act normal, the more obvious it became that I wasn't. That evening, Noah noticed. We were sitting on the couch watching some show I couldn't even follow. He kept glancing at me between scenes, finally saying, "You've been somewhere else all week. Did something happen?" I forced a laugh. "You mean besides wedding stress?" He smiled, leaned closer. "I just want to make sure you're okay." "I'm fine," I said too quickly. Then softer. "Just tired, that's all." He nodded, bought it instantly. His faith in me was like a shield and a knife at the same time. I could hide behind it, but it also cut every time he looked at me like I was someone I wasn't. After he went to bed, I sat in the dark living room scrolling through my messages again. There was a new one from Eli. Just 4 words. "You're still thinking about it." I stared at it until my eyes burned, then deleted it. I blocked his number this time. At least I think I did. The next day, Noah surprised me at work with lunch. He'd never done that before. He showed up holding a takeout bag and smiling like he'd just solved all my problems. "Thought we could eat together," he said. Everyone in the office melted. My coworker, Jamie, whispered, "You got yourself a keeper." I laughed like it was cute, but inside I wanted to crawl under my desk. I wasn't used to this much goodness when I felt so ugly inside. We sat in the park outside my building, eating sandwiches. He talked about the honeymoon plans, about how he couldn't wait to show me the villa he'd booked in Italy. I nodded, pretending to listen, watching the sunlight bounce off his wedding band, the one that matched mine. For a second, I wondered if I even deserved to wear it. Then I reminded myself, everyone makes mistakes. People cheat all the time and still get married, still move on, still build lives. I wasn't a bad person. I was just human. That's what I told myself. That night, while he was showering, I caught myself looking through his phone. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe proof that he wasn't as perfect as I thought, some sign that he had secrets too. But all I found were photos of us, grocery lists, messages from his mom. No hidden apps, no mysterious numbers, nothing. Just Noah. Stable, predictable, good Noah. I put the phone down and stared at it. For a second, I hated him for it, for being so clean, so undeserving of what I'd done. Over the next few days, I started performing normalcy like it was a job. I cooked dinner, texted him sweet things during work, made plans with our families. He seemed lighter, happier. Every time I saw him smile, I told myself that meant I was fixing things, that the lie was working. On Friday, we went out to dinner with his parents. His mom asked if I was nervous about the wedding, and I laughed. Nervous in a good way, I said. I just want everything to be perfect. Noah reached for my hand across the table and I squeezed it, smiling. To anyone watching, we looked like the perfect couple, the picture I'd always wanted. Later that night, though, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. The music, the drinks, Eli's smirk, Noah's trust. They blurred together until I couldn't tell which version of myself was real. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of the wedding. The aisle stretched forever, white flowers everywhere, everyone watching. But when I looked down, my ring finger was bare. The next morning, I woke up sweating. Noah was already up, humming in the kitchen. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands, half expecting the dream to leave some mark. But everything looked the same. The ring was still there, gleaming like nothing had happened. While we ate breakfast, Noah mentioned that his sister wanted to throw us a small engagement dinner before the wedding. Just close family, he said. I thought it might be nice. Sure, I said automatically. He smiled, clearly happy I'd agreed. I love that we never fight, he said. That sentence hit me harder than anything else had all week. Never fight. Because he didn't know there was already a war happening, one he couldn't see, one I'd started and couldn't stop. Later that afternoon, I caught myself looking at our reflection in a shop window. We looked perfect together, his hand resting gently on my back, me smiling like the luckiest woman in the world. But I knew better. The reflection was a lie. That night, as we curled up on the couch, Noah kissed the top of my head and said, I trust you with everything. I smiled. You should, I whispered, even though my heart was pounding. When he fell asleep, I checked my phone one last time. A new notification blinked across the screen. A message request from an unknown number. You don't have to pretend with me. No name, but I didn't need one. I turned the screen face down and stared into the dark, telling myself it didn't matter, that this too was just noise. But deep down, I could feel it. The secret wasn't fading, it was waiting, and soon it was going to speak for itself. By the next week, I thought I had everything under control. The wedding was close, the plans were in motion, and I told myself all I had to do was smile until it was over. Then the world would calm down, the guilt would fade, and life with Noah would go back to being simple. But secrets don't like quiet. They always find noise. It started with a photo. Clara had tagged me in a post from the Bachelorette weekend. It was a group shot. Me in a white sash, everyone holding glitter cups, all of us laughing. At first glance, it looked harmless. Then I saw it. In the background, standing by the bar, half turned toward us, was Eli, just blurry enough that only someone who knew him would recognize him. But I knew him instantly. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. I zoomed in, hoping I was wrong, that my eyes were playing tricks. But it was him. The same shirt, the same stance, the same night. I messaged Clara right away. Take that post down, now. She replied with a laughing emoji. Why? You look amazing. I called her. When she answered, she sounded half asleep. Isolde, it's literally a cute photo. No one's even looking at the background. I kept my voice steady. Noah doesn't like Eli. If he sees that, it's going to be weird. She sighed. Fine, I'll delete it. You're so paranoid lately. Just do it, I said. She hung up, annoyed. A few minutes later, the post disappeared. But it was too late. The panic had already started crawling under my skin. At work that day, I couldn't focus on anything. My eyes kept flicking to my phone, half expecting Noah to text me. Every vibration made my stomach drop. But he didn't message me about it. Not that day, not the next either. On Wednesday during lunch, I overheard 2 co-workers talking near the break room. One of them, Jamie, the same one who'd called Noah a keeper, was scrolling through her phone. You know Isolde's ex? The gym guy, she said, laughing. Pretty sure he was at her Bachelorette. Someone posted about it and then deleted it fast. The other girl giggled. Awkward. Hope her fiancé's chill. They both laughed. I froze. My face felt hot, my hands cold. I pretended to drop something and walked past them, pretending I hadn't heard. That night I went home early. Noah was already there, sitting on the couch with his laptop. He smiled when I came in. Hey babe, I ordered Thai food. You okay? I forced a smile. Just a long day. He tilted his head, studying me. You sure? You've been off lately. I'm fine, I said too quickly. Just tired. And please, no more questions about the wedding. I can't even think straight. He nodded. All right, we'll keep it simple tonight. He didn't push. That was the problem with Noah. He always took me at my word. He trusted that my silence meant peace instead of war. While we ate, I kept glancing at his laptop. An email tab was open. All I saw was the sender's name before he closed it. Lawrence and Stein Legal Group. At first, I didn't think much of it. Noah handled clients' taxes. Maybe it was work. But something about the timing bothered me. The way he'd closed the screen so quickly. The calm way he acted, like he wasn't hiding anything at all. Later, while he showered, I checked the email history on our shared computer. There it was. 3 recent exchanges with that law firm. All marked confidential. My heart started racing again. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was updating our prenup or dealing with paperwork for the honeymoon. Still, a sick kind of curiosity settled in. When he came back, towel around his waist, I asked, "What's the law stuff about?" He looked at me, surprised. "What law stuff?" "The emails. I saw the name on your screen." He smiled faintly, but his voice was calm. "Just work, babe. You know I can't talk about client files." I nodded, pretending that made sense. But something in his tone felt different, cooler, measured. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay awake, listening to his breathing, wondering if maybe he already knew. Maybe he'd seen the photo. Maybe someone had told him. My mind spun with all the ways this could fall apart. I thought about confessing. Then I thought about how pathetic that would look, how small I'd seem next to his steadiness. Instead, I started rewriting the story in my head. If he found out, I could say Eli cornered me. Or that I'd been drunk and confused. Maybe even that it didn't go as far as it did. The trick wasn't to lie, it was to believe the version that sounded most survivable. The next morning, I tried extra hard to act normal. I made his favorite breakfast, laughed at his jokes, kissed him before work. He smiled like he believed it. But when I came home that night, he was quieter than usual. After dinner, I asked, "Everything okay?" He looked at me for a long time before saying, "Someone mentioned your ex to me today." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "Clara, she said he was at the party." I forced a laugh. "He was at the same bar, yeah. Totally random. You know how small the city is." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, just surprised she didn't mention it sooner." "Because it wasn't a big deal," I snapped. Then, catching myself, I softened my voice. Sorry, I'm just tired of everyone turning everything into drama. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then quietly, "You'd tell me if there was something I should know, right?" I smiled, maybe too quickly. Of course, there's nothing to tell. He watched me for another second, then nodded. Okay. I hated how calm he sounded. No accusation, no anger, just quiet understanding. It felt like a trap. Over the next few days, he started acting differently in small ways. More polite, more distant. He'd text me reminders instead of sweet notes. When we watched TV, he sat a little farther away. I told myself I was imagining it, but part of me knew. Something had shifted. One night, I caught him on the phone, his voice low. When he noticed me, he ended the call fast. "Just work," he said again. "Late for work," I replied. He smiled faintly. Deadlines don't stop for weddings. I wanted to ask who he'd really been talking to. I wanted to shout, "Just say it if you know." But I didn't, because saying it out loud meant admitting there was something to know. That weekend, we had dinner with my parents. My mum couldn't stop talking about how lucky I was. "You found the kindest man alive," she said, squeezing Noah's hand. He smiled, but there was something in his eyes, like he wasn't really there. Driving home, he was quiet again. When I asked what was wrong, he just said, "Nothing." But when we got inside, he went straight to his office and closed the door. I stood in the hallway, my pulse hammering. Something was happening, and I wasn't in control anymore. I tried to tell myself that if he really suspected anything, he would have confronted me by now, that he was just stressed, that everything would blow over if I stayed calm. Then, just before midnight, I walked past his office. The door was open a crack. Inside, his computer screen glowed. On it, I saw a folder name, Pre-Wedding Documentation. The air went out of my lungs. I took a step closer, but then I heard his chair creak. I ran back to the bedroom before he saw me. Lying there in the dark, I finally understood the look in his eyes. The quiet, patient kind of knowing. He wasn't guessing anymore. He was preparing. And if Noah was preparing something, I knew it wasn't going to be loud or messy. It would be precise. It would be clean. It would ruin me. The morning it happened, everything looked normal. Sunlight coming through the blinds, coffee already made, the faint hum of the dishwasher. But the silence between us felt heavy, like the air had learned how to listen. Noah was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop closed and a stack of papers in front of him. He wasn't dressed for work. He wasn't even pretending to look busy. "Can we talk for a minute?" he asked quietly. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. It wasn't anger or hurt. It was calm, almost too calm. The kind of calm that comes after someone has already decided what they're going to do. I tried to smile. "Sure. What's up?" He looked at me for a long moment before sliding one of the papers toward me. "I want to ask you something," he said, "but I need you to think before you answer." I picked up the paper. It was a printed email. Hotel reservation confirmation, my name at the top, the date of my Bachelorette weekend. My hand started to shake. I laughed nervously. "Oh, that. Clara must have booked the room under my card. She does that all the time for group rates." He didn't react. "So you didn't stay there?" "No," I said quickly. "Of course not. Why would I?" He nodded once, then pulled out another paper, a screenshot this time, a grainy still from what looked like a security camera. It was me, in that same white dress from the party, walking into the hotel lobby with Eli right behind me. My mouth went dry. He spoke softly. "I'm not showing you this to hurt you. I just want you to tell me the truth." I shook my head, words tumbling out before I could think. "Noah, it's not what it looks like. We were drunk. Everyone went back there for drinks after. Nothing happened." He tilted his head slightly. "Nothing?" I could feel my pulse in my throat. I swear it was just stupid. I should have told you he showed up. I just didn't want to ruin the night. He sat back, eyes steady. You stayed in that hotel until morning, Isolde. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Every excuse I'd rehearsed in my head suddenly sounded ridiculous. Finally, I said, You're blowing this out of proportion. It was one night, and it didn't mean anything. Noah's face didn't change. So, something did happen. The room tilted. My chest tightened. I didn't say that. You're twisting my words. I'm just listening, he said quietly. I pushed back from the table, pacing. You've been spying on me, going through my stuff, digging up photos and emails like I'm some criminal. How could you do that before our wedding? He stayed seated, hands folded. Because I needed to know if I was marrying the woman I thought I was. I froze. There was no anger in his voice, no raised tone, just exhaustion. And that, somehow, was worse than if he'd screamed. Noah, I made a mistake, I said, softer now. A stupid mistake. I was drunk, I felt lost. It didn't mean anything. Please don't throw everything away over one night. He looked at me for a long time before saying, You threw it away, Isolde. I'm just acknowledging it. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. I wasn't going to be the villain in my own story. You're not perfect either, I snapped. You shut down emotionally for months before this. You made me feel invisible. What was I supposed to do? His expression didn't change. Not that. That simple reply shattered something in me. I wanted him to shout, to curse, to tell me I was horrible. Instead, he stood, gathered the papers, and said quietly, The wedding's off. I've already talked to both families. I gasped. You what? Without even talking to me first? I'm talking to you now. I reached for him, panicked. You can't do this. You can't just decide that by yourself. We've planned everything. Everyone's expecting. He shook his head. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because I deserve peace. I followed him as he walked toward the door. You're overreacting. We can fix this. We can go to therapy, talk it through. Please, Noah. He paused at the doorway, his back to me. You lied to me for weeks, Isolde. You smiled at me, planned a wedding with me, while you were hoping I'd never find out. That's not something I can build a life on. He left before I could say another word. I sank to the floor, shaking. My first instinct wasn't heartbreak. It was panic about what people would think, what my mother would say, what my friends would whisper. I needed to get ahead of the story. By that afternoon, I'd already called Clara. He's losing it, I said, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. He's convinced I cheated because someone sent him fake photos. She gasped. You're kidding? Who would even do that? I sniffed. I don't know. Maybe someone jealous, but he's cancelled the wedding. Clara cursed under her breath. Unbelievable. You've always said he was controlling. This just proves it. I didn't correct her. Let her think what she wanted. By the next morning, my mother knew. She called crying, asking what had happened. I told her Noah had misunderstood something and refused to listen. She said, I knew he was too cold for you, darling. Men like that don't forgive. I didn't tell her about the photos. 2 days later, my phone rang again. It was Noah's mother, voice calm but distant. I'm sorry for everything that's happened, she said, but please don't call him for a while. He needs space. I wanted to scream that I needed space too, but the words stuck. Everyone was already treating me like I was radioactive. That evening, a courier arrived at my door with an envelope addressed in Noah's handwriting. For a second, my heart lifted. Maybe it was a letter. Maybe he wanted to talk. But when I opened it, the air left my lungs. Inside was a legal notice, petition to terminate joint financial account and property claim. Attached was a statement of intent to dissolve all shared contracts related to the wedding. It was written in the same calm, methodical tone Noah always used when handling business. I stared at it until the words blurred. Clara called again that night. He sent you legal papers? That's crazy. You should call a lawyer too. I don't need one, I said automatically. This isn't real. He's just angry. But deep down, I knew this wasn't anger. It was precision. Over the next few days, my phone stayed mostly silent. The group chat with the bridesmaids went quiet. My mother texted constantly, asking for updates. Noah didn't respond to any of my messages. I tried showing up at his townhouse, but his car wasn't there. A neighbor said he'd moved out for a while. For a while. Like he was giving me time to sit in what I'd done. I went back home and poured myself a drink. I stared at my reflection in the dark window, at the woman who'd ruined her own wedding and still managed to feel like a victim. This isn't fair, I whispered to no one. It was one mistake. The room didn't answer. My phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number, all documentation filed. No contact until further notice. I sank into the couch, gripping the paper in my hands, realizing what his calm really meant. He wasn't just leaving, he was erasing me, slowly, legally, and without ever raising his voice. And somehow, that hurt worse than any scream ever could. The first thing I noticed when I stepped into the law office was how quiet it was. No chatter, no phones ringing, just the soft clicking of keyboards and the steady hum of air conditioning. The receptionist smiled politely and asked if I was Ms. Crane. I almost corrected her, Mrs. Bennett, but stopped myself. I wasn't that anymore, not officially. She directed me to a small conference room with frosted glass walls. It smelled faintly of coffee and paper. I sat down, clutching my purse like it could protect me from whatever was coming. My hands were sweating. A man in a grey suit walked in a few minutes later, holding a folder. "Ms. Crane," he said with a calm, professional tone. "I'm Daniel Pierce, Mr. Bennett's counsel. Thank you for coming in." "Where's Noah?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. "Mr. Bennett won't be attending," he replied, taking a seat across from me. "He asked that I handle all communication going forward." I laughed softly, but it came out shaky. "He can't even talk to me himself now." Mr. Pierce folded his hands neatly on the table. He thought this would be less emotional. Less emotional. That phrase burned. I wanted to shout that this wasn't a business deal, that we weren't strangers signing contracts. We were supposed to get married in 10 days. Instead, I said nothing. He opened the folder and slid several papers toward me. "This outlines Mr. Bennett's intentions regarding the dissolution of your shared accounts, property deposits, and all pending contracts related to the wedding. He's agreed to cover any vendor cancellation fees personally. You won't be held financially responsible." I stared at the neat rows of text, the lawyer's tone so even it made me want to scream. "So that's it? He just ends everything?" Mr. Pierce gave a small nod. "All matters will be handled within the law. There's also an affidavit you'll need to acknowledge. It pertains to conduct during your engagement." I blinked. "Conduct?" He handed me another sheet. My name was at the top again, followed by a paragraph I didn't want to read. Attached were several pages of evidence, screenshots, text messages, timestamps, and a printed witness statement. My throat tightened. "What is this?" "Documentation," he said simply. Mr. Bennett wanted to ensure full transparency. He won't pursue defamation or emotional damages, but he needs the record clear. I skimmed the pages even though my vision was starting to blur. There were messages between me and Eli, deleted messages I thought were gone forever. There was a copy of the hotel receipt, and Clara's name listed as a witness confirming Isolde left the group with Eli and did not return until morning. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I looked up, desperate. "He can't use this. He can't just take my private messages." Mr. Pierce's expression didn't change. "Everything was obtained through legal means, Ms. Crane. Nothing here is contested." I sat back in my chair, my pulse roaring in my ears. My own best friend had signed a statement against me. "Clara," I whispered, "she did this." "She confirmed the events as she remembered them," he said. "Mr. Bennett requested no embellishment, only truth." My voice cracked. This is cruel. He met my eyes for the first time. No, Ms. Crane, it's meticulous. That word cut deeper than anything else. I stood abruptly, shoving the papers back at him. You can tell Noah he's a coward. He couldn't even face me. He had to hide behind you and your forms. He rose as well, his tone still calm. He's protecting himself, not punishing you. I stormed out before he could say anything else. Outside, the air felt too sharp, too bright. I walked until my heels hurt, until my thoughts blurred into noise. When I finally got to my parents' house, my mother opened the door and froze. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "what happened?" I didn't answer. I dropped the folder on the kitchen table and said, "Read it." She flipped through the pages, her hands trembling. I watched her face change, confusion, disbelief, then something that looked like pity. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet. "Isolde," she whispered, "please tell me this isn't true." I tried to speak, but my voice broke. "It's not how it looks." She didn't press, didn't shout. She just sat down, covering her mouth with one hand. The silence between us felt worse than any lecture could. That night, I lay in my old bedroom staring at the ceiling, surrounded by the ghosts of my teenage years. Band posters, fairy lights, a dusty mirror. I thought about all the things I'd told myself since that night. That it didn't matter, that no one would know, that everyone made mistakes. Now my mistakes had names, dates, signatures, and witnesses. I picked up my phone. Dozens of unread messages from friends, most of them confused. "What happened? Did you and Noah split? He unfollowed you?" I ignored them all. I opened Noah's contact, my thumb hovering over the call button. Then a new message appeared. "Noah, I'm not angry, I just need peace." I read it 3 times. No threats, no cruelty. Just that. Something in me snapped. I typed back, "You don't just erase someone you loved." But I didn't send it. I deleted it instead. The next morning, my mother made coffee and asked if I wanted to talk. I shook my head. "There's nothing left to say." She sighed. "Maybe you should let him go, darling. Some things can't be fixed." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because deep down, I knew she was right. I'd spent weeks pretending I could bend the truth until it fit the story I wanted. Now the story was gone. Only the evidence remained. I spent the day pacing, replaying every word from that lawyer, every page of that folder. Each detail felt like a nail sealing a coffin I'd built myself. By afternoon, anger finally replaced the numbness. I told myself Noah didn't have the right to humiliate me like this, that he could have forgiven me if he'd really loved me. I called Clara, ready to unleash every ounce of blame I could muster. She answered after a few rings, her voice hesitant. "Isolde." "Why did you tell him?" I demanded. There was a long pause. "He already knew before he came to me," she said softly. "He just wanted the truth confirmed. I didn't say anything that wasn't real." "You betrayed me," I hissed. "You betrayed him," she said, "and yourself. I'm sorry." Then she hung up. I threw the phone across the room, watched it hit the wall and fall to the floor. The sound echoed through the house. My mother came running in, startled. "What happened?" "Nothing," I said, wiping at my face. "Absolutely nothing." That night I sat by the window, staring at the streetlights. Every time a car passed, I imagined it was him. That he'd show up, tell me it was all a mistake, that we could still fix it. But he never came. By midnight, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to let him walk away so cleanly. I wasn't going to let him write the ending alone. The next day, I called his sister. She sounded wary when she picked up. "Isolde, I just need 5 minutes," I said. "Tell him I want to talk in person, just once." She hesitated, then sighed. "He's attending to final arrangements at the venue this weekend. That's all I know." "Perfect," I said, forcing a steady voice. "Then I'll see him there." After she hung up, I sat there trembling, the weight of my own decision sinking in. If Noah wanted everything clean and legal, fine. I'd give him one last conversation before it was over, one last chance to remember that I was still real, one last moment where he'd have to look me in the eye before erasing me completely.